Andy, this is your moment. I'm going to stop sharing and you can take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me just, you folks have done a fantastic job giving my links out, but I just wanted to give some more information about what I put out in terms of resources. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Talia, Leah. This is a fantastic opportunity. It has been a while since I have done one of these. I call this like a tour around the flow canvas. Kind of, I walk people through all kinds of different types of flows. Obviously, it's not possible to teach everything in this limited time, but it should be a good overview. About myself, I'm a Salesforce MVP, and I call myself a chief content creator at Salesforce Break Flow Canvas Academy, and I do manage a Salesforce consulting company called BRD Pro Consulting. I'm 21 times certified at this time. And you'll see my links over here. I put out a lot of content. I have a YouTube channel. I have a blog on salesforcebreak.com. I link everything I do to the salesforcebreak.com website. So if you cannot find something, just go there and then you should be able to find the links. And then I have also some other content courses that are like rather very cheap. I have one basics course posted on the Salesforce Break website. It's actually a link there. It's on Teachable platform. That's like about $5. And then my Udemy course is right now on sale for $9.99 for you. So that's the code that you need to use, Go Gators 24. So this is for Gainesville. That's why the code is also Go Gators, right? So for the next 4 days, you can get it for $9.99. And then I have a bootcamp live course that you can find out about by going to flow-canvas.com, or on LinkedIn, you can look for company Flow Canvas. So in the coming days, I'm going to be hopefully starting many services under the Flow Canvas umbrella, all for admins, all for you. So keep an eye on that, follow that page. And another space that you can interact with me, I'm there quite often answering questions, is our Flownatic Slack workspace. And the invitation for that, I'm going to share with you in chat. So I'd like for all of you to join me on that workspace. There are a bunch of people there asking questions and many people answering questions, many of them more clever, more intelligent than me. So if you get stuck building flows, you hit a hurdle, you have an issue, you come on there, and then there's going to be a Canvas document that's shared that tells you what the general guidelines are in terms of asking for help. And there's also like a workflow that we have set up that is going to ask you for your information. You can just post your welcome information to everybody, introduce yourself, and then get started. All right, so hey, and yeah, I'm starting actually another round of my live course bootcamp April 8th. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me, connect with me, and contact me, and then we can get you started with that. So I create a lot of content for various kinds of needs. You may need one over the other. I'm going to try and teach you flows. Whatever you need, I'm going to try and put out for you. Okay. So I've been doing this for years. That's why I think I have a very good understanding in what comes hard for people when they are trying to learn flows, right? So, I receive a lot of questions, and, some of the concerns that you had, that you shared in the survey, I have heard numerous times before. Like, for example, it's scary, right? It's very scary. And, I understand that. It is scary. I agree with you. I'm not here to tell you, you know what, it's so easy, it comes so easy for me, and you should be able to learn it like in a day. No, that's not true. First of all, the first thing that's important to put out there is everybody learns differently, right? So some people learn by looking at slides better. Some people learn with live courses better. Some people need more time over a longer period of time. It's like a more of a boot camp type of style. Some people want to listen, some people want to see and touch, right? So we all learned differently. And if um, you're gonna gain a superpower as you go along and learn new technologies and new skills, the one superpower that you should learn is to understand how you learn, right? Because I think the most important skill that you can have in this era is learning constantly new skills and technologies, because things evolve so fast, right? If you have that, you don't need to be concerned about the future. So, and the way I teach, I mean, I teach in many ways, but the way I teach is definitely by showing you how things are done in tutorial style format. So, uh, if you participate in any of the training sessions that I lead, you're not going to see a lot of slides. The only slide that you're going to see today is the slide I just shared with you. There is no other slides, right? I get that question a lot. Are you going to share us resources? Do you have like a slide set that you can share with us, send to us? Yeah, I have many resources that I've already shared. They are out there, right? I'm trying to keep them updated. In fact, it's a challenge even for Salesforce. I find a lot of information that's stale and not updated. I, fill out forms for them to get those updated. That's one of the reasons why I don't really do a lot of static documents and that kind of stuff. So, having said all that, what do flows do? Flows give us the power in our Salesforce platform to do automated tasks, right? Those are valuable for us when we have to do things over and over again. It gives us speed and accuracy, right? Like we don't want to, as a user, constantly be doing the same things. Some simple tasks we want to kind of outsource to the bots, to the automation. And when we are in Salesforce, this is our Salesforce screen. The way we are going to find flows is we're going to go to this gear icon here, go to setup, and click on flows. I mean, click on the search box over here. That's how I get to it. And then, find flows in my menu, click on flows on the left side, and that's going to take me to this screen. Now, this is a preview org that receives the new release earlier than anybody else, like, earlier than dev orgs or production orgs, but along with other preview orgs. And I've been using this preview org for years. As you can see, it's like full of flows, right? You can build many flows here. If this is a new org that you are on, you are trying to follow along, for example, using a dev org, you may not have so many flows here. And this is like any other list view in Salesforce. You can create multiple list views here. You can pin one, and then you can also use filters to filter some of the flows that you have here. Like, for example, you can use certain words in your labels, flow labels, and then you can filter for those. That's why I have all these codes in my naming convention. That's how I use it. I don't really have a strict recommendation for you in terms of how you should be naming or labeling your flows, but you should come up with definitely a consistent strategy that works for you and your team, especially if you work in a team. If you don't follow a certain strategy together, that's going to confuse everybody. It's going to be very hard to locate things. So I usually start with an object, and then I insert kind of like a project code to be able to filter on later. And then, I will explain what the flow does. I'll use RT for record triggered flows, and then for other type of flows, I'll spell it out. And I usually use also the word flow at the end of it, because sometimes when I look at this, like through the API, I want to make sure that I immediately see that it's a flow. But I mean, it is actually quite evident that it's a flow. You don't really have to do it exactly the way I do it. And I've been informed with the new release, it's a super welcome change. We are going to get a search box here. That's going to allow us an immediate search here in this list view, like the other list views. And we are going to get a type and subtype. We're going to get two new fields, type and subtype, that we can also put on our list view and filter using those in our list view. So I may not have to do this anymore, like, put a code in the label. I'll just put it in my type and subtype then. So now, if you want to create a new flow, obviously you're going to click on new flow here. And this is where the anxiety starts, right? For many of you, right? So you open this, you're like, holy smokes, where do I start, right? So which one is the right one for me? Now, first of all, let me tell you, you're not alone, first of all, right? So mostly everybody has the same reaction. And you know, they usually have that reaction also because they heard about or they use workflow rules in Process Builder, right? And they say, workflow rules used to be so easy. I miss workflow rules. Why did they take away workflow rules? I want to still use workflow rules. And I understand that sentiment. Workflow rules were quite easy and they kind of had like this wizard kind of interface, right? You know, you set something up and then you needed to set something else up. You connected the two together, bam, you were done. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is this box over here, the record triggered flow, does everything workflow rules and process builder can do and more, right? So this is the reason why this thing is scary, because it's like 10 times more powerful, right? So, you have so many other flow types that you didn't have before on the process builder and workflow rule side. So there's a good reason why this feels more complicated. So let's walk through the types right here. Now, record triggered flows are the flow types that are very similar to process builders and workflow rules. They actually launch when a record is created, updated, or deleted. And the actions that we perform, they are performed in the background. So they are usually not visible to us until we pull up the record again and then review it. You can update the existing record, you can update a related record, create records, you can run actions, you can do all kinds of stuff with that. They are quite powerful, right? Now, record triggered flows, if you look at the list view under some of the columns, they are going to show up as auto launch flows. They are auto launch flows with a trigger. And when we say trigger, we mean the part where it gets launched by a DML. We call that a DML, create, update, delete in the database language. So that's why the auto launch flows and record triggered flows are very similar in nature. The main difference is that the auto launch flow doesn't have a trigger. So it actually triggers on demand. For an auto launch flow to trigger, and it is going to also perform actions in the background, I need to invoke it. I can call it from Apex. I can call it from a process builder. I can call it from a process. I can call it using a REST API and more. I can call it via URL. There's a URL hack I can use to invoke it. And whenever we need any kind of screen interaction, we want to show the user static information, dynamic information that is based on their record, for example. We want to accept input from the user. We are going to have to use screen flows. Screen flows give us that power. They are the only flow type with a screen element. None of the other flow types will have a screen element. And it's also important to know that the Flow Builder is a product that Salesforce bought back in the day, and it only came with screen flow functionality. I mean, it is a tool that was used to script information for the call center agents. And after that, Salesforce decided to build new functionality on top of the Flow Builder, and they announced the retirement of all the other tools. As you know, recently Salesforce actually gave us a date for end of support. There's going to be a day where Salesforce is going to say, you open a ticket to me and you want to ask me about Process Builder, you're alone, because you shouldn't be using it. You should be using Flow. And then let's talk about schedule triggered flow. Schedule triggered flow is an action that we can perform on a predetermined date and time. So whenever we need to execute something and we want to set a date for it in the future, we say like, okay, on the 29th of March at 8 p.m., I want to run this action. And I can also set up a recurring schedule for that action. So I can determine a frequency. Every day at 8 p.m., I can continue running that same action. That's handled with a schedule triggered flow. That also runs in the background. Whenever we have delayed actions that are kind of anchored on the back of a create, update, or delete, then we use record triggered flows. On the record triggered flows, we have the functionality that's called a scheduled path, and scheduled path is going to be uh, uh, built and executed on the back of a record triggered flow. So that's the main difference here. Here, we determine exactly when the action needs to be run. Here, the action is going to be anchored on the record being created, updated, or deleted. So, for example, send out an email a day after the opportunity is updated. Then that's going to be handled here. I'm not going to go to platform events, but just know platform events are uh, more advanced tools that we use sometimes to break things up. Sometimes we want to split transactions. That helps us dealing with more complicated, more advanced use cases, but we rarely use them in our daily use cases. And the record triggered orchestration, let me mention, like in one sentence, orchestration is a sophisticated automation tool. And we can actually use record triggered orchestration, and we can also use auto launch orchestration that is used to stitch flows together to come up with use cases that kind of bounce things around from one department to another. Things can go from one user to another, and then we can schedule screen interactions, delay screen interactions, and then wait on records, multiple records being updated and created by different users and trigger other things with it. We can even trigger what we call MuleSoft automation with orchestrations that can trigger automations that are external to Salesforce. You know, we can trigger actions in external systems. Those are more advanced solutions. So we're going to get started with record triggered flows here, right? So record triggered flows are easy if you have dealt with um, workflow rules before. So we're going to start with the start element. When you start a new flow, it's going to kick you to the start element. You're going to choose an object. You're going to say, I want to run this flow when an opportunity is updated, right? So that could be a way. Please note here, you can choose create, update. You can choose create or update and then delete. And then you should, if you have a criteria, you should definitely specify the criteria in your start element. That's important. You can say when the stage of the opportunity equals qualification, for example, right? And then you get to choose whether to execute this every time or only the first time when this criteria holds true. That's also important in some use cases. And you have, let me just decrease my zoom. I have this screen on 125% for you to be able to see this better, but then it doesn't play well with my start element. So now I have here on the bottom these two boxes. And this decision here, the choice is quite an important one. Now, on the left side, I see fast field updates, and on the right side, I see actions and related records. So fast field updates I use exactly like the description says, whenever I want to update a field value on the triggering record, right? With this option selected, I cannot really create or update related records or unrelated records. I have to do my updates on the triggering record. In which case, in this case, that's the opportunity record. So if I want to update a field value on the opportunity record, I'm going to be on the left side. If I want to email, if I want to create a task, if I want to update the account related to the opportunity, if I want to do anything else, I have to be on the right side. And this on the left side is called before save. The box on the right side is called after save. And if you forget that designation, sometimes, you know, people will mention that, you can actually look directly in the description below. You're going to see in italics the word before right here. And then over here, the word after. So this one is after save. Here, in this case, we want to be in before save. Whenever you can be in before save, you want to be in before save because before save is very efficient and fast, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to add update triggering records element. And our update triggering record element is going to simply, just to show that this is working, let me just give this a label, update opportunity. And it's important that you give these descriptions, but for the sake of time, I'm going to skip that. And the description is going to be updated an opportunity. This opportunity is in qualification. Okay. So now let me just double check that my start element is in line with what I'm doing here. Fast field update, stage name equals qualification. I'm updating the opportunity. The opportunity is in qualification. Now I can save this and give it a name. I'm going to call this opportunity and update description. Again, here use description. That will be helpful for you later on. So now I can debug this. The first thing you should do when you build a flow, you need to debug it. And you have a couple of options here. I'm not going to change anything there, but I need to point this to a record for me to be able to test. I'm going to say, you know what, let's test this one on this opportunity testing context 5, whatever that record is. Now, because I have set my flow to run on update, it's going to give me all the field values so that I can simulate an update. So I can look here, this should be in alphabetical order. For example, I can look here and see that this is in prospecting. So from prospecting, if I change this to qualification, my flow should trigger, right? So let's test that. I'm going to run this. And on the right side, if I expand all, first of all, before I expand all, let me just show you my path that the flow took in debug is going to be highlighted in color. So it went all the way to the stop sign. That's a good sign. If there is an error, it's going to give me a stop sign here, like the traffic stop sign, not the stop sign. That means there is an error that was that we have seen when updating the opportunity or something. We didn't see that. I can expand all here. I can see what the flow is doing. It did meet the entry conditions. It ran, and then it is updating the stage. No, it's updating the description, right? Let's find the description right here. This opportunity is in qualification. So having seen that, I'm comfortable to activate this. Let me just activate this and go to my opportunities, this view, and really execute this. This debug run was executed in rollback mode, which means the description field was not updated when I ran the debug. But now I'm going to trigger it. I activated it already. Make sure you build everything in your sandbox so that you can also activate and test like this. And you'll see that the description field is now updated. And folks, I think you're typing stuff in the chat. Continue typing and then continue asking questions. So I'm going to take a break in between once in a while to answer some of the questions, okay? But let me just quickly progress. Now, this is a good example. Now, let's advance this example and say, we want to actually send out also an email in addition to this update. If I want to do that, I can deactivate my flow. I can go back to my edit mode. I can save it as a new version. And now I want to add an email alert to this. Email action, in fact, not an email alert. And if I go in here to add another element, I can look for it, but I'm not going to see an action here. I cannot add an email action. The reason for that being, remember, this is a before save flow and the actions are not allowed in here. So I will have to change the type of flow I'm building. I can do that though. In the second version, I'm going to change it to actions and related records. As the name suggests, now because the email action is needed, I have to be on this side. So I select that. Remember, the actions and related records can also do what fast field updates do, but they are not as performant and fast. So, the fast field update stuff needs to stay in fast field, but whenever I need anything else, I need to move to the right side. So now I'm going to go in here and then add an email action. I'm going to go to action, and here under my actions, start typing email, and I will see a send email action here, email simple. And that's going to open this dialog for me. And I'm going to type in here, send email. This is going to be the name of my element. And here I have a bunch of inputs that I can slide on and then feed into the action. I'm going to give it a couple of things. I'm going to say, I can actually send this to a contact record. I can send this to a lead record. When I say send to contact and lead, it's going to use the email address on those records, or I can specify an email address. And when I'm specifying an email address, I can use a collection or list. You're probably not familiar with collections. That's fine. A list is a comma separated list I can use, and then I can type in the email addresses here, or I can use a resource that I have already in my flow. So for the purposes of this session, I'm going to type in a Gmail address I usually use for testing, salesforcebreak@gmail.com. So I'm going to send that email there. And then I'm going to turn on the subject slider. I will say your opportunity is in qualification. So this is the notification. And for the body, I can use the same thing. So we're not really using text templates here to send like a more sophisticated body, but generally you want your emails to be in HTML format. So as a general rule, I always tell people to turn on HTML emails here. Rich text formatted body is that. So you're gonna turn this on and then set this to true, meaning global constant to true. That's how you turn on rich text formatted body. In this case, it doesn't matter because I'm just pasting in simple text for the body, but this is what you want to get accustomed to doing. I think that should be enough. We can debug and see what the results are. So now let me just save this and debug. And again, I'm on the same record. This time it's in qualification. I don't really need to update anything. It should also already trigger. As you can see, the whole path is highlighted. There are no red signs or anything like that. If I expand all, I'm going to see there's going to be an email to be sent to this email address. And that email is going to say your opportunity is in qualification, right? So now let me just, in my second monitor, I wanna go to that email address so that I can show you the results also when I activate this. All right, so we're in business here. Okay, now that I have pulled that email address, let me just activate this. And this time trigger it from maybe another opportunity. So let's try this opportunity testing context tool. I mean, it's a record that I used before for some other testing, but the description is empty, so it's a good one to use. And the stage is ID decision makers. Now, if I change this to qualification, I should see two changes, right? Two actions. One, the description needs to be updated. The opportunity is in qualification. Two, I should have received an email in my email address. Let's see if that happened. Actually, I did not receive an email address, email here. So this triggered, is it in my spam? Just a second. All right. Let me see if I typed the email address correctly. Salesforce. Oh, that's not the email address. Silly me. Well, one of the advantages of doing this live is I actually make a lot of little mistakes here and there. And people tell me that actually is quite nice for them to see that I actually constantly fail myself, because that's how this thing is learned, right? There is no point in development where you are so powerful and you're so skillful that you don't ever make any mistakes. So, the best thing you can learn in this kind of environment is you'll make mistakes, and then, you should master the debug log and the testing very well so that, you can understand what your problems are. You can fix it, right? So now opportunity testing context, let's go to another record here. The description is empty. Did we activate this? No, we didn't activate it. Let's double check. Yes, the email address is now correct. We need to save it and we need to activate it. Well, all right, so now let's change this one to qualification. And the description is updated, and voila, now we have the email. So this is the email. I'm sorry. Am I echoing?
No, sorry, someone was not muted, but I muted them. Keep
Oh,
going.
it's all right. No worries. So now your opportunity is in qualification email is delivered into the email box. Remember though, when you send out a lot of emails using Salesforce actually sends the email from a salesforce.com subdomain that's kind of like created on the fly or something for you. And then it just sends as Andy Utkan. It's not really Andy Utkan email address. So that's why it has also the potential of ending up in spam folders. If you don't see the email in your testing, make sure you check also your spam folders, right? All right, let's do a couple of answers. Let's see what we have here in the chat window.
Yeah. So Andy, I'm going to say I could show you, or I could just tell you, we
Yeah,
have
just read it.
through Mentimeter, we have some questions. The top question we have right now, which may or may not relate to what you've shown right now, is how does the flow know to run before the opportunity record is saved when using before save? I hope that made sense.
Okay. All right, good question. Now, first of all, folks, before save and after save, that's a lengthy discussion. It's a more advanced topic, but the best way I can explain this to you is if you come from a PC world, let's say you've done a lot of PC work, or you may be a technical support person for just PC and desktop environment or something. When you save something to your hard drive, like you can retrieve it, it's saved there. That's not what this save is, right? So this save is something different. In the order of execution of things, Salesforce performs 20 steps when you do a DML operation, meaning create, update, or delete. There are 20 steps that Salesforce performs. And the seventh step, like somewhere in the middle, not exactly in the middle, but seventh step is called save. And the best way I can define that is like the data is prepared, kind of like in memory, for it to be committed to the database. The act of kind of saving in the desktop environment is here commit. Commit comes all the way at the end. It's like the second to last, not the last, but second to last action that occurs. There is also post-commit actions. When you commit your changes to the cloud, then you can retrieve those changes from the cloud. So when I say before save, it does not mean what you think it means. Just think of it this way. If Tom Brady was throwing a ball like 50-yarder into the end zone, and somebody reached in, Andy reached in, and then he has a marker in his hand, and then he just puts an X on that ball while he is in the action of throwing. That ball is going to be delivered into the end zone with that X on it. That's before save. So the ball is coming out, right? So after save is if, somebody actually puts the X in the end zone. Let's think of it that way, right? All right. So let's continue. Any other?
Yes. Yes. So another question we have, if I can get back to my proper screen, which I seem to have. Oh, there we go. Okay. Other question is, can you explain resources in flows?
Yeah. Okay. Resources inflows. Again, this is going to be, well, actually, let me explain to you the resources just in a minute as I switch to the auto launch flows, because that's where you're going to see it. All right, so we said this is a record triggered flow, right? So we can actually create an auto launch flow that's going to run on demand that can do the same exact thing. I can start over, or there is one neat trick I want to teach you here. I can actually take this flow, and instead of saving it as a new version, I can save it as a new flow. I'm going to copy the name, a new flow. I'm going to paste the name here. And this time it's going to be an auto launch flow. I want to make this into an auto launch flow. But I mean, I didn't change anything else other than the name. So I will have to go into advanced and say, this is now an auto launch flow. I can change the type. I'm going to save this. This is going to break my flow because record triggered flows are built differently, but I can fix it. So now it tells me, you know what, your flow is broken. You need to fix it before you truly save it. So here in my update element, I'm referring to I used to refer to the record that triggered the flow. There is no record that triggered the flow anymore. So then I need to specify that. How can I specify that? I can use resources. Now, this is where the resources come into play. If I click on this one, I can create a new resource and then make a variable. What are variables? Variables are containers for me to keep information inside my flow builder throughout the execution that I can use temporarily. I can put stuff in it. I can retrieve stuff from it. I can change it, all within the flow execution context until I set them up differently. So, here I'm going to set this up as record ID. And I'm going to spell this exactly the way you see it, which is record ID with only I capitalized and every other letter small, in small format. So then I'm going to say, you know what? This is a text variable. Whenever I want to create a container that holds a record ID, I want to make it a text variable because it's in the end a 15 character or an 18 character unique sequence. That's what it is. It's like a limited, let's say it's a restricted string text field. Now I want to make this one available for input. You remember I just defined variables for you and I said they are only available inside Flow Builder context. I can actually make them available outside if I mark any of these here or both. If I say it is available for input, it means the flow when it's run is going to expect this from the outside world. It's going to ask for this value from the outside. So I'm going to accept this from outside, and I'm going to say, you know what? I want to specify the conditions of the record that I want to update because there is no triggering record anymore. I know it's an opportunity. That's what I'm working with. And I'm going to say, you know what? Under the criteria, the opportunity ID needs to equal to what? A record ID that I just created. I can refer to my variable. And I'm going to say here, again, like last time, this part is the same. Description is going to say, this op is in, let me make this abbreviated. Also, that way we can also tell that, this flow is a little bit different. When we see the output, we can tell. So do I need to change anything here? You can see here, I didn't really refer to the triggering record. So this one is fine. This one is not complaining. So let me try and save this again to see if this warning is going to go away. This stop sign warning. And I think we're good. Let me save it. And it disappeared. Now, how can I test this? This time when I debug this, I get to decide whether this is in rollback mode or not. So be careful there. If you do not click this and execute it, then it's going to commit the update. If you're in production, that record is going to be updated. The email is going to be sent out. Be careful. If you're in sandbox, you're good. All right. So now let's pick one of these records here. And I want to pick here Express Logistics Portable Truck Generators. And if I go to an opportunity record, this is my record ID. I can go to my browser, double click on this sequence and copy it. That's my record ID. And I can feed that to the record ID here. You remember I just told you I created a container and that variable is going to ask me what the value needs to be when it's run. So that's that dialog right here. So now, again, I see this whole thing went down without any problems. It updated the opportunity in debug mode, rollback mode, and it sent out the email. But I ran it in debug mode, so none of these things executed. Let me just refresh my screen. The description is still empty. This time I don't really need to do anything else other than debug this again and uncheck this box. If I uncheck this box, the changes will be committed. So now I'm going to check this. Here we are. The description has been updated. Let me see if I got an email, right? Okay, now I have an email here. The emails are very similar, exactly the same, in fact. So they are threading in Gmail. But you can see there was one that was sent 10 minutes ago. Now there was one that was just delivered. So that worked as well. All right. Any other questions?
Let me see what the next most popular one is. We've got the resources covered. Next one is, I always get stuck in debug logs. Want to know more about debug logs as well.
Okay, debug log. Debug log is where you are going to see everything executing with a lot of descriptions. And you can actually add more detail to it. In fact, you can add API names, governor limits, consumption, show transaction boundaries. The thing that differentiates a very good flow builder from an excellent flow builder is the mastering of the debug log. It is impossible for me to teach you the debug log in this short session, but I will tell you this. If you have a problem, you need to read through the debug log and see what values your variables are taking, what your updates are updating on the record. Read the values, right? You know, sometimes what happens is your get doesn't produce a result. So you get a null record, and then you try to use a field value that's null in your operations, and that's going to get you in trouble. And what you want to be doing is, if you see a stop sign here, start with where you have the stop sign, check that element and the element right before. If not, start reading from all the way the beginning to the end. You need to read it sometimes like a book, right? And if you get stuck, come to Flownatic Slack workspace and we'll help you. That's the first question we ask. We're like, show me your debug run.
Yes, there is.
If you can't see,
I
we'll see
always
it for you.
I always tell people you can't know everything, but you can lean on the community. There's so many resources like your Slack workspace where you can go and say, help, help, help. I don't understand. I don't know what to do. Just, get a screenshot or post what you see, and somebody hopefully can help you, like
Yeah,
Andy.
exactly.
People keep asking about the recording, Andy, and you mentioned that you wanted to post your recording somewhere. Can you tell
Yes.
us more about what you wanted to do with the recording?
Yes, this recording will be on the Salesforce Break YouTube channel. You can watch it as many times as you want. You
Yeah,
can,
we're probably going to cut the beginning and end off, but the middle
yeah,
part, like this,
exactly,
will be
exactly.
there.
I'll cut the beginning and end.
Okay.
Okay,
I hope that answers the
so
question.
let's continue, right?
Mhm.
Are we good to continue? Okay, let's
Sure,
get
unless
fancy.
you can answer another question, but yeah, there's lots of questions from the audience.
You
Let me know
wanna?
when you want to cover them.
Okay, well, let's get fancy. Now that you mastered all this stuff, you're pros, right? So let's get fancy. All right. So what we're gonna do now is, you remember I told you about scheduled path. Let's say you want to delay the sending of the email. Let me do that. How can I do that? Now, if I go to, well, actually, this auto launch version is not the version that I want to be in. Let me just get out of here and then go back to my record triggered version. I need to be in record triggered to be able to do my scheduled path. Let's say I want to delay the delivery of the email. Update is good, but I want to delay the delivery. How can I do that? Now I'm going to go in here and then I'll see something called add scheduled paths optional. And here I can add as many scheduled paths I want. I can add a scheduled path that's going to execute 1 minute later. I can add another one that's going to execute 1 day later. And I can even anchor my actions to any date or date and time field on the record itself, like close date. I want to send out an email 1 day before close date. I can do that. But I'm going to do, for testing purposes, demonstration purposes, 1 minute later path here. And then what I'm going to say is simply, when the opportunity is updated, 1 minute later, 1 minute option is here. I can do after. And if I anchor this to any date and time field on the record, I can do also before. But in this case, I can't do before because, I'm anchoring it to the update itself. So 1 minute after, I want to execute this. So when I get out of here, I'll see that there's another path here. And then if I create 3 more paths, I'm going to see all kinds of different branches. So now I can take this, cut, and paste it here. So this is going to run immediately. This is going to run 1 minute later. These are, in fact, 2 different transactions under the same flow. They are going to execute separately. So now I'm going to save this as a new version and debug it. When debugging it, I'm going to also see, let me see, this was looking for qualification. It's in qualification. I'm going to see, I get a pull down here. And it's going to ask me, which branch did you want to test? You cannot test both branches at the same time because they are 2 different transactions. They don't know each other. Like if you remember we talked about resources. If I have a variable on one of the branches, the other one doesn't know what the variable value is. Remember that. So, some people just start connecting all these paths together. That doesn't work. I don't know why it works on the flow canvas. It does work. Like, you can connect them together, but it's not going to work. So you want to keep them separate. Don't let the worlds collide. All right. So here, 1 minute later, I want to test 1 minute later. I'm going to run. Unfortunately, there was a problem. Save. Edit flow. Oh, okay. I forgot to tell you, when you add a scheduled path, you are required to use this second option. So let me give you a quick description on what these options are. Like, I'm looking for the stage name equals qualification criteria. If I don't choose this, every time anybody updates this opportunity record, if they update the description field, if they change the lead source, if they change the amount, it's going to trigger. It's going to trigger multiple times. We don't want that. We want this trigger only once because we don't want to send out 1 million emails, right? And when you are setting up a schedule path, this becomes even more important. Salesforce doesn't want you to create all these like redundant scheduled paths sitting and waiting to be executed to send out like 100 emails. So they require for you to set this right here. That was what the error was about. Now, when I save this, that's going to disappear. I'm going to debug, point it to this record. It is in qualification stage. And now I can test any of my paths here. and this is not triggered. Maybe I need to use one of the records that is not already in that stage. Let's set this to prospecting. And let's clear this here as well. Reset this record and use this record. So Express Logistics portable truck generators. Debug again, and then use the Express Logistics portable truck. 1 minute later, run. Debug again. Yeah, I forgot to update it 1 minute later. It doesn't let me update it. So I'm gonna have to put this in qualification. Right, mark as current stage. Let's try this again, debug again, Express Logistic, 1 minute later, run. It's not triggering. I do get that sometimes in the debug log when I'm doing updates.
Andy.
I don't know what the
So-
reason is right now.
Someone in the chat mentioned asynchronous is not checked, and I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it.
Asynchronous is what?
not checked. Not
No,
checked.
this is not asynchronous.
Not
It's
related.
it's
Okay.
another alternative. We're not gonna go into asynchronous today, but let me just
Okay.
activate this and then trigger it that way. Let me see. That way I can tell whether there is a problem with the flow or just the debug. We're tripping something. So now the opportunity is in qualification, and the way we can find out whether that schedule path work is we have a screen called time-based workflow screen, and that shows those entries, the schedule paths. Workflow rule label does not equal empty. Do we have an end? Like this. Just a second. Let's do this one more time. Workflow rule not equal to. Doesn't like that anymore. It used to work fine with no filter like that. Did they put something else in here that I don't know about? All right. All right. Workflow rule contains flow. Let's try it this way. Search. All right. That's not going to play well with us. That's fine. 1 minute should have passed. Let's see if we receive the email. No, the email is not delivered. This is very strange, though. This screen doesn't work on
We
me.
have
This
we
is a
have some
pre-board.
attempts at helping in the chat. We have someone saying, can you use 2 quotation marks or can you use no in the space? And maybe they've changed something that require that. Nope, still doesn't work. But these are good ideas. I can't.
No, I
click
mean,
through
this
all.
works.
This is wrong.
It could be, like I said, this is a preview org that gets all kinds of
Mm.
different buggy content sometimes.
Right.
Something
The
is
new
not
stuff
working on this screen.
that you get to test out. No
Yeah.
worked for me, said Cynthia, but maybe she's
Okay, well,
Yeah.
learn it from Cynthia.
yeah.
Let's
No, she says. Writing word no.
Sorry about that, folks. I'll get back to this at the end. Okay, let's skip this one. But
Thank
you got
you.
the idea here. That's how this is set up, right? So update description. By the way, hold on a second. Is this activated? Yeah, this is active. Which version is active? This version is active. 1 minute later, schedule paths. 1 minute later, send an email. Does this refer to anything related to the record? Not really. It should work. I mean,
Yeah. One other suggestion was from Sunita, default workflow user should be UR user. I don't know what that means.
Well, yeah, these are very good questions, but I've been using this preview work for years, remember? So,
Yeah, it's something's changed and it's not working the
so
same
look,
way that you.
the process, what they are referring to is if you're using this for the first time for scheduled paths, under the
Mhm.
process automation user, you need to set up under the process automation settings, you need to set up the process automation user. That's here. Default workflow user needs to be set up. It'll require that. It'll tell you that you need to. By the way, we got the email now. All right.
Hey,
So look, 3 emails. And then we got this email 2 minutes ago. I thought I checked 2 minutes ago, by the way. Anyway, this is playing mind games with me. All right. So now that we put that one to bed because we don't have a lot of time, let's keep rolling. But before that, Talia, you can ask us a question.
awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone trying to troubleshoot. That's what the community is about, right? So would you go over the loop element? Got 5
Ooh,
upvotes.
loop we cannot do
Lots
today.
of people want to know. Okay, too
No,
complex for
no,
today.
loop.
We're gonna skip that one.
In my
Send
6-week boot camp, loop is
Mhm.
week 4. Let me just explain that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why we can't cover it. Week 4 is pretty far in the hole. So send email versus email alert. Is one better than another, or one only available in certain flow types?
Right now, when building a new flow, you want to always use the email action, simple email action. Unless something doesn't work, you kind of have to use an alert or something like that, which could happen. There are very minimal tail cases, like with some objects that are out there. Sometimes things don't work. You cannot merge in some field values or something. Then you go there. But there is no reason the simple email action got supercharged. You saw all these parameters. It has all the options that you need.
Okay. I we got that one. Can you send the email as another user? Or maybe someone was related to something that you were dealing with at the time, but I can't tell. Can you send the email as another user, or it goes from the sender that saved the flow?
Okay, so this setting up for the sender is done here. If you want to send the email from anybody else than the user that triggered the original transaction, then what you want to do is you want to set up an org-wide email. So you want to set up an org-wide email address here. There's a setup that you need to do. And then after that, you can use this email address as a sender in your parameters in your simple email action. So if you have here a no reply address, an email address for Andy, an email address for Talia, you can pick any of those in your simple action if you have set it up properly. If you've not set it up, just by means of adding that as a sender in your action, it's not going to work, right?
Okay.
You got to set it up.
This is debug log seems to be a popular topic. Not sure if you cover this exactly, but it says, how do you read the debug log? In your email example, the debug log said input and then had the information like the email address. Under output, it said none. How do you know this worked?
Because there is no stop sign. If it wouldn't work, then you would see that stop sign that we just saw here, right? You know, the traffic stop sign with the diagonal line that you see in your path right next to the email action. If you don't see that, if your highlight is going all the way down here, then it worked. There is no output because that action doesn't produce an output. The output is the email, but that's not really fed back to the flow itself.
What are some, real quick, what are some, I don't know if this is a real quick question, but what are some introductory best practices? Is that a big topic or a little bit? Something you can hit on quickly?
Okay,
Maybe
so
first, like,
introductory best practices. First of all, build in your sandbox. Build your flow and then debug it first. If it debugs well, then activate it in your sandbox and trigger it. Remember, debug is not execution. So sometimes things don't seem to work in debug. Sometimes it works in production or vice versa, right? You know, when I say production, I mean like execution in the sandbox, not production environment. So you want to go all the way until the end, execute it, and then if you're comfortable with it, go ahead and deploy it to production, right? So those are the basics and best practices as things relate to flow building.
Perfect.
Well,
Okay, I'm going to cover one more question, and let's see. There's lots of ones that don't have any upvotes, but I'm going to choose one that has at least one upvote. In real life scenarios, how to find out which flow to be used? Any tips?
what flow types?
Yeah,
Yes.
like maybe easy ways to be like, no, right away, like, oh, this is a this or this is a that type.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good question. It's
You almost need like a infographic. If this, then go here.
Talia, you are super clever. Just a second. You and I think alike.
All right. Ooh, somebody wants to know how they can pass the admin exam. That's
All right, go to
probably going to be
my last
website.
name .teachable.com.
Mhm.
Okay, this one right here.
I'm gonna try to type that in.
Utkanteachable.com. If you cannot find it, just go to Salesforce Break. Actually, go to Salesforce Break. I used to link it all the way up here, but now it's under contact. Go to contact. And under contact, you'll see if you finish my Udemy course, you haven't finished my Udemy course, but you know, we'll give you a pass. So you can get that on this page, the flow picker tool. You get here, you go here. And then on this page, you're gonna get the flow picker tool, what actually exactly Talia described, I built
This is
and
perfect.
put out there years ago for you to use. So you
Amazing.
just gotta give me your email, you know, what you gonna do.
Yep.
Register and then get it for free. Okay.
Okay, I put the link in the chat for everyone. I put the utkan.teachable.com, or you can go to salesforcebreak.com and make your way there.
Okay. So
Are we, do you feel like you have more to cover, or are we about to wrap up?
are we out of time?
We're at 7:18 and we need at least a few minutes to do our quiz.
Okay, let me just do a very quick thing about schedule triggered. I think that's what we have. Well, we have not even done screen flows. No, we got to do screen flows. Forget about schedule trigger.
Yeah.
I cannot leave without doing screen flows. Just a second.
Screen flows are so powerful.
Give me a minute.
Helpful.
So, okay. So now screen flows. Very quickly, folks. Now, let's say we want to do a screen flow. And for that one, we are going to create a variable again. But this time, this variable is going to be a record variable. And you're going to be like, what is a record variable? I know it's going to be tough, but bear with me. So I'm going to name it exactly the same way. But this time, I'm not going to make it a text variable. I'm going to make it a record variable of type opportunity. I have to specify what the record variable is for, what type of S object or object it is for. So I'm going to mark this available for input like I always do, like similar to the auto launch flow. And now I'm going to build a screen. And here, there is a functionality called the fields functionality that gives me superpowers. When I use the fields functionality, I can point to the record variable, and then I can see all the fields that are on the record variable and put those on the screen to view the existing value of that field on that record and also make changes to it. Like, for example, description, name, stage, description, close date. Close date would be a good one, right? Those fields. And I'm going to, what I usually do is I actually disable the header. And I have a form already done. Well, I got to give the screen a name. Let's call it the opportunity screen. And this is done. Now, this doesn't have a record to work with yet. So what I want to do is, well, yeah, actually it's going to get it from the outside world. So I marked it available for input. So that's fine. So I'm going to pass a record to this. Those values are going to show up on the screen. I, as the user, can modify those values. Then I need to update the cloud with those values, though. I'm going to add an update records element, say update opportunity, and this is going to commit all the changes to the cloud, and I'm going to simply point it to the record variable. Those record variable values are going to be used to update the cloud. So now let's try this out. I'm going to debug this. Because I made the input a record variable this time, it's not asking me a text input. It's not asking me for the ID. It's going to show me a picker. And then that picker is going to allow me to pick a record for the opportunity to be used. And when I run this one, it's going to show me all these field values of that record. Now I can make changes. I want to say, I don't want this close date in the past. That needs to be April 1st, April Fool's Day, 2024. And when I click next, that should have already executed. And we can go to our opportunities here. I think this is the record, right? Express Logistics 4/5/2018. And now, as you can see, the close date is 4/1/2024. I guess let's leave it at that then, if I'm out of time.
Awesome. Okay, so I hope we've left you wanting more, and I'm hoping, Andy, can you show that slide again where you show all your locations of your content and where people can find you, especially the Slack space?
Yeah.
I think people are excited and they want to be able to interact with your content more. Please take a screenshot when he shows this on full screen so that you can save all this and find Andy where he's at.
Yeah.
So you see where it says Udemy course? That's a special code for participants of this meeting. Go Gators 24. It lasts for 4 more days, and you can get his course for $9.99 on Udemy. You can check that out, see if that's of interest to you. There's another course, I think it was $5 somewhere in there, but we're definitely excited to have all these ways to consume your content and to learn more from you.